We have even more stats once the new mini set came out, so now we can really see what the meta is shaping up to be. I'm gonna go over 5 of the best performing decks, and we'll check out their mulligans, win rates, and overall general tips with them, but we're also gonna check out all of the other working archetypes for each individual class, so stick around to the end. If you're serious about Hearthstone and you find what I'm doing helpful, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget you can also follow me on Twitch, so you know when I'm going live. Now let's check out the decks. Even after the hotfix on Blazing Transformation, Evolve Shaman still seems to be the best performing deck for the last one day. Same can be said for top 1000 Legend as well, but we can also look at the last 3 days so we can get a clearer picture of what's happening. Right now the big winners are obviously Shamans, Death Knights, and we can also see some other classes still doing fairly well. Starting off with the first deck on the list, obviously it's still gonna have to be Evolve Shaman, and here you can have very different variants, but they're all gonna be very good at doing turn 2 12-12s. Even though Blazing Transformation cannot discover you Colossals anymore, it's still absolutely busted, and you can still get some crazy things like a turn 2 12-12, or Thaddeus, or the Naxxramas, or that 8-8 rush with Death Rattle 8-8. This particular variant is actually not running Wildpaw Caverns, which does seem to be a very good card, but honestly on turn 4 you want to be playing things like Prescience, or do some Goldshard Gnoll shenanigans, because when you're going first, turn 4 is where you can actually pop off like that. As you can see, there's tons of similar decks that are cutting different pieces of the deck. Some run it without the Chisel, other without Wind Chill, which feels very strong against mirrors, some even cut Farsight, which can high roll a lot, and so on and so forth. Matchup wise, from Diamond to Legend, here's what the stats show, and as you can see, Quest Priest and Blood Death Knight might have an edge over you. And things like Control Paladin might also be pretty strong too. Fifro can also high roll a lot if they know what they're looking for, but all around you should be climbing with ease. For the mulligan, here's what it looks like going first. Schooling, Prescience, and even Goldshard Gnoll nowadays is still a keep even when going first, but especially when you have the Schooling. Neptulon I wouldn't really keep like that, but let's say if you already have Schooling, Vol'jin, and Neptulon, that might be a good keep on its own, because a turn 5 Neptulon is usually too big to deal with most of the time. Farsight is also nice on turn 3, Blazing Transmutation is also not a bad keep, and I still like keeping Muck Pools because that gives you a decent turn 2 Evolve Totem. On the coin, again, Goldshard Gnoll becomes even better obviously because it's 2 mana cheaper. Prescience still amazing as well as Transmutation, Schooling's great, Neptulon as well can work out, the weapon ain't bad, and Convincing Disguise can get some nice infuses nice and early too. The Shadowhunter Vol'jin, still pretty decent because you can do it as soon as turn 4, especially if you set it up with a Carving Chisel, to ensure that you have a target to swap with. Muckpool, still pretty nice. For other good Shaman decks, we also have some weird iteration of Evolve Shaman honestly, as well as some Murloc Shamans out there, but it does seem like Control Shaman is not amazing anymore. On the number 2 spot, we have a new version of Frost Death Knight, which is a lot more minion-centric, because with the new location, you get to do a lot of cheesy things. You're still running the Frost MVPs like Frostworm Fury, as well as Frigidara and Tessarian. We also have Frost Strikes so you can discover some nasty things, and Horror Winter helps you tempo out a lot faster too. But we have a lot more minions in here, including things like Arms Dealer, Body Bagger nowadays, which used to be a dead giveaway that you're not actually playing against Frost anymore. The Foul Leg is great with the Constructed Quarter. Nerubian Visor still discovers you a lot of good stuff, as well as School Teacher, and you also even have room for Marrow Manipulator because you're gonna get a lot of corpses with this one. Matchup wise, so far you don't even have bad ones, at least from the popular ones, so climbing should definitely not be an issue. And this one is a lot more straightforward because it's a board-centric deck, so it's not as hard as its spell-heavy counterpart. Mulligan wise, here's what it looks like going first. You want your Tessarian, especially if you're already curving out with a good 1-drop, let's say. Quarters is amazing. Harbinger still gives you a lot of gas, Frigidara still not bad, and I'd also consider keeping the weapon in most cases. When on the coin, however, the situation is not very different, and here you can even keep things like Nerubian Visor. On the number 3 spot, we also have Unholy Death Knight, which is also doing very good, given the fact that Quarter fits in greatly with it. But again, you actually have room for Foul Leg in this one, because of that reason. From what I see, we're no longer running the 2-drop that gives a 2-2 rush Death Rattle, but all around the deck looks pretty similar to what it used to be, but with these few new cards, it's just a lot better. Matchup west from Diamond to Legend, Blood Death Knight is not gonna be fun, as well as Evolve Shaman, and also Control Priest, but everything else is solid green. For the mulligan, going first and second, you basically want to curve out like a god, Location always a keep, Foul Leg as well is super amazing, the Peasant also makes a lot of sense, Nerubian Visor can make the cut, and Plague Strike also feels very nice. And also Hawkstrider on curve is also pretty good, and depending on the matchup, even Blightfang might make sense. When on the coin, it looks pretty much the same, but even things like Marrowgar become a bit more keepable, so if you already have a good curve and the matchup warrants a Marrowgar, it might be a good idea. Grave Strength, I wouldn't really keep just like that, honestly. And on the number 4 spot, we also have Blood Death Knight, so that means the 3 of the best decks right now are all Blood Death Knights. Good job, Blizzard, you did it. But yeah, Blood Death Knight right now is very good against Evolved Shamans because you have so much removal tools, so even if they high roll things like turn 2 12-12, you can still just asphyxiate, or even discover some other things, and just keep on clearing boards over and over again. But you still have to be smart about it, because they can definitely sneak out lethals on you with some seemingly harmless boards. You have tons of removal, tons of discovers, and tons of sustain. So yeah, winning with this deck should not be a problem in the current meta most of the time. Matchup wise we don't have that much stats yet, but like I said, Evolve Shaman is gonna be easy. As well as Unholy Death Knight, which is nice. Since we don't have too much stats, the mulligan is not gonna be super detailed either, but again, the quarter is super nice because it gives you a lot of early game sustain, so you can fight on the board. Body Bagger is a perfect turn 1 for you, Chill Fallen Baron gives you a lot of card draw, the Hematurge is also pretty nice, Visor as well, and if you're recurving out, you might even consider things like Patchwork. For other good Death Knights, we also have the Spell Heavy Frost Death Knight still working very strong, but it's a bit more complicated than the other variant I showed you, but the rest seems to be iteration of those 3. Despite the new Colossal, Rainbow Death Knight is not as good as the other variants, but it's definitely not a bad deck, so you can give that one a go as well. There's also a 40 variant for the Rainbow, as well as for the Blood Death Knight, but the stats are not as good. And on the last spot we have Inpluck with the new Nothing's Impossible card, which feels very nice because it makes your boards a lot stickier now. The deck is basically straightforward Imp Warlock with just the 2 new cards added, so everything else is basically straightforward. You still curve out super fast, you draw a ton of cards, you have your Mischievous Imp, your Shady Bartender, and your Reform. So yeah, you try to close the games fast before control really starts kicking in. For the matchups, not that much stats just yet, but apparently Evolve Shaman is gonna be wrecking you, and Unholy Death Knight seems to be a bit too fast as well. Mulligan wise, you want to get your good early game imps. Imp King Reform makes sense, depending on the matchup though. Fiendish Circle is always great, Imp Gang Boss as well, Flustered Librarian, and also Mischievous Imp, especially if you're already curving into it. For other good Warlock decks, also Phylactery Warlock is still doing very strong, even though that kinda doesn't make too much sense because Evolve Shaman is such a hard matchup for it. Curse Imp Warlock is still usable as well, and there's also this new Thaddeus Warlock, which also seems to be having a decent positive win rate. For the classes we didn't mention, starting off with Demon Hunter, we have Fell Demon Hunter doing alright with Jace at the end, and also the Spell Weapon Demon Hunter is also doing fine. The rest, not so much. For Druid, Ramp seems to be the best variant right now, both with 30 and 40, but also Aggro Druid is still somewhat usable, and it's also super cheap. For Hunter, Beast Hunter is the best performer so far, and also Shockspitter Hunter is still usable. Arcane Hunter, barely above 50 though. For Mages, Big Spell Mage has the best stats, but also Aggro Mage is doing quite fine, and Ping Mage is at a close third too. Secret Mage also seems somewhat usable, but I wouldn't be taking that in top Legend. For Paladins we have pure Aggro Paladin doing the best, but there's also this Dragon Kazakhstan Paladin that was doing quite well, because it worked decently well against Evolve Shamans. For Priest we have both Quest Priest and Undead Priest at the top spots, and also Control Priest is doing fairly well too. Svalna Priest is also barely above 50, and the better you are with the deck the better the results. And also Boom Priest probably is still usable, even though not as much. With Rogues, Thief Rogue is the best performer, and Miracle Rogue is still above 50%, but it's not as amazing anymore. And for Warrior, we have Enrage Warrior being the best, but Quest Warrior still is actually under 50. So that's gonna be it for this top 5 guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you wanna be playing in the new Naxxramas meta. Don't forget you can also hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris05 and I'll see you in my next video or stream.